Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am so excited for my guest today, Johanna Walker. Johanna and I have been talking for probably close to a year on and off. And in October, we finally got to meet in person. And you know, when you're talking to somebody online for a really long time and then they're there and it's oh my God, I can hug you and, feel your energy. So it was really, really awesome. And so I'm going to read her bio and you're going to think she's as awesome as I do by the end of this podcast. So here we go. Can you imagine taking any stage and sharing your expertise with confidence? And while you're speaking, the audience pays attention to you and not their phones, and then leans in for Mo. That's a private joke. I'll tell you about that later. Anyway, if so, you're in luck because today's guest, Johanna Walker, is a speaking and storytelling coach who's on a mission to get more business leaders telling better stories on more stages. She's danced around at the White House. Oh, shoot. Okay, we have to talk about that. She's danced around at the White House inside a rabbit suit, cut fish heads in Alaska, and delivered messages as a bike messenger in New York City. Oh, I have a story about that for you. Johanna has stories to tell, and so do you. She's told them on the TEDx stage, given keynotes at industry conferences, and is a Moth Story Slam winner. She lives outside of Boulder, Colorado, where if you're lucky, you might find her riding around on her bicycle, sporting wings and a red polka dot dress. So without further ado, let's meet Johanna. So do you and Allison O'Brien hang out?
Allison O'Brien?
Oh my God, she's in Boulder. Oh, you guys totally need to. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce you to you guys. Totally need to meet, or you ladies totally need to meet. When I was out in Denver. Before I went out with my friend/client, I met Allison in Boulder, and we went to, oh crap, there's a famous little lunch spot.
The tea house? The Dushanbe tea house.
Maybe, I think.
That's the famous place.
They serve breakfast and everything?
Yeah, and it's really ornate and gorgeous.
Yes, okay, so that, no, it's more like a pancake breakfast house.
Oh, a pancake breakfast house.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
I wonder what it is.
It was right at the foot of the mountain, which I'm sure all of Boulder is. But it's as you're pulling in, there's this strip mall. There's a sneaker place. And then inside, oh, I forgot. I could look on my GPS. But anyway, so we met there. But anyway, and Boulder was just, it was beautiful. We didn't go downtown Boulder. We were in when you first come in.
Yeah, that's right, but I can't think of a pancake place there.
Oh, so good. Pancakes and waffles and all the what is it called? Huevos rancheros and yeah, it was really good. Anyway, I'm going to introduce you to, and then you guys can go and you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so it's so funny because I know, we did the karaoke thing at the Dames and that was a lot of fun. And after I did that, everybody was oh my God, you need to be on a stage. LB came up to me a few people and I said, well, I sing professionally. They were no, we mean speaking. And it was really funny because I knew that I was going to be speaking to the National Institute of Social Media online on accessibility. But, that was it. So then we were at Shoshana's house that night and Precious and I said, okay, I'm speaking it into existence that I'm going to start doing public speaking. I swear to God, a week later, Nicole Glover is hey, I got an offer to do this thing, but, I speak to 8 and 9 figure businesses. This is more for startups. Would you like me to introduce you? Okay. So she introduced me to Deb Dietz and Ram, I always forget his last name, but they run the VC Europe X convention, and it's a 4-day convention for women and minorities in third world countries and, just around the globe. And so the initial talk, they said, hey, we would love for you to do your marketing expertise. And I said, sure. So the initial talk was on, just best practices in all forms of marketing for startups, right? And entrepreneurs. And then they said, hey, would you do the keynote panel for LGBTQIA plus businesses? And I mean, I couldn't get past keynote. I went, huh? And they're like, would you do the keynote? And I went, sure. I mean, and then I'm thinking, I don't know any gay business owners. I knew like two, but other than that, it's not like every gay person knows every gay person, just like not every gay business owner knows every gay business owner. So I reached out to Annie Ruggles and she was like, oh yeah. And then she got on LinkedIn and we got all the people that we needed. But long story short, so, I started speaking. I was freaking out because I always say, I didn't say it once. Didn't say it once. And the joke is like, I didn't have public speaking on my 2023 bingo card, but here we are, right? So it was kind of crazy. So tell us about you, like, all of you and what you do and the whole speaker thing, because the whole speaker thing to me just was like, duh. So.
Duh. Yeah. Yeah. So about me as a speaker, I guess I can say, I came into it kind of through the back door. I was a poet and a theater artist. I was a really quiet kid. I would, didn't speak. I was not a speaker. I didn't speak for days at a time as a young person. But then I started telling poetry, doing poetry readings and theater and dance. And I was a tried and true starving artist. And I had a client, I was teaching a solo performance class, and I had a client, one of my students was giving a TEDx talk. This was like 10 years ago. And she asked me to help her with a TEDx talk. And this was like before TEDx was totally ubiquitous. It was, it was like, whoa, she's giving a TEDx talk. And she asked me to help her. And I said, sure, I'll see what I can do. And at that point, I really knew nothing about the world of speaking. I was an artist. I lived on the fringe as an artist, and I made theater and I painted houses. And then I helped her, and I was like, whoa, that was cool. And so I hung my shingle as a speaking coach. And at that point, I was working with a coach who was helping me build the business, and he said, now you have to go out and speak. And I was like, no, I don't speak. You don't understand. I don't do that. I can help people speak, but I'm not a speaker myself. And then he was like, no, sorry, you're gonna have to do it. So I was actually in the middle of a marketing workshop, and we had to introduce ourselves with a Twitter pitch. And so I worked so hard to boil down my pitch or my value of what I deliver into 140 characters. And I got up and I did it in 140 characters. I nailed it. And everybody else got up there and was just rambling on. And I was like, they cheated and they got more airtime. I followed the rules. Right. I did what I was supposed to do, and they cheated. They got more airtime. And, but then in the end, somebody came up to me and said, that was amazing. Will you come speak for our group?
Wow.
And I said, sure, no problem. And then I went home and hung my head over the toilet for months until the speaking gig, because I was so terrified. I was comfortable as a theater artist, and I did solo performance, and I told stories, and I did bold things on stage as a theater artist, but getting on stage as a speaker and sharing my authority was way out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I did it. And since then, I have taken bigger and bigger stages and bigger leaps. And every leap I take, there's a new, I get to faceplant in the old stories again. And so that's me as a speaker. And now I love it. I'll get me on any stage and I will move the room.
Right. Right. I mean, and I think that's the whole thing is, I sing professionally, and, I did acting like 1,000 million years, in high school, but, I sing professionally, so I can get on a stage and I can sing, but sometimes talking to the audience, now I'm more comfortable. Like since I have the podcast, that's like changed so much. But before the podcast, I would be like, so how's everyone doing? Now I'm like, come on, everybody clap your head. I get into the whole thing. And then when I got asked to do the public speaking, um, for NSI, oh, the funniest thing was I didn't have a presentation. Like I didn't have a deck. And it was like 3 days before. And I was like, yeah, I'm speaking. And I was like, oh shit, I need a deck. I can't like just talk and not, have something. So I reached out to Kim. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And, so I wrote it out. And then she made it pretty, but like it's like with this public speaking thing. Yeah, you probably need like some kind of a presentation behind you, right? So that there are talking points so that, and I didn't do it before, so I didn't know. So then before the conference, it was like, oh my God. So I don't even know how many slides I had. And I gave it to Annie and she went, this is fucking stupid. She was like, it's like 100 slides. Like, what are you going to do? And I went, I don't know. I need help, but it's next week. So can you pare it down? So she pared it down and it went, it went really well. And, I think for me, it was scary because it's online. There's no engagement. There's no energy that you get to feed off of. They're just like, so you see the comments coming in and stuff, but it's not the same as feeding off an audience. So it was weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I said to Ron at the end, I said, man, it was fun. It was weird because people are talking and I'm looking on the thing in the chat and
mine is hard.
Yeah, it was different. So I can't wait to like get on my first stage.
Yeah. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. I've been working with a client. He's a founder of a $500 million company. And he's a visionary and a brilliant business owner. And he's never given a talk before. He's like, that is not my thing. And then he got invited to give a keynote in front of 1,000 people. And he was utterly terrified.
Oh, sure.
And he was like, I like to take on challenges. So we worked together and it was so incredibly fun working for him because he was this combination of really smart and humble, like just really willing to learn. Anyway, he just gave the talk yesterday and he texted me. He was like, oh my God, capital letters. That was amazing. I killed it. Everybody told me mine was the best conference. That was amazing. When can I do it again? It's just like the fear is like a brick wall for so many people. And it, like everybody's got a different version of fear. Some people call it fear. For some people, I feel like it's just procrastination, or some kind of distraction. But when you do it, it's so exhilarating, to make that connection and to be in the room and to just bring your humanity into the light and connect with the other humans. It's just like so exhilarating and so powerful. And it was so great. It was so great to get this text yesterday. It was just like, I was smiling from ear to ear.
I mean, that's an amazing testimonial. And, it was funny because when you're done with the online things, it's like, okay, bye. Right. They just like, and then you're sitting there like,
alone in your room. Like, where is everybody?
Like, where'd everyone go? But it was so funny because like when it was done, I sat here for about 5 minutes and I was like, that was freaking amazing. Like I knew that I was on, I knew, just from all the interaction. And I just started thinking, what would it be like in person? Because if that was awesome, and then we did the keynote on Thursday and it was the panel and it was like Annie and Heather Vickery and Megan Doherty and Kevin Jones and Scott Spann. And so I was facilitating and asking, we were talking about, challenges and opportunities because, not everything is negative. And that was awesome because it was like, and I was able to tell, Scott, who I love dearly, and Kofi will tell you, we both have ADD and we have to like reel each other in. So when he went to say something, I was like, 3 minutes, and then, and he was like, okay, whatever. But that was like really, really cool. I was like, oh, okay, this is right on.
Yeah.
I dig this. So, so there's going to be a next step. I may end up doing a series with him. But that's like another story for another day. But, so the opportunities that can come of it, but, the exhilaration, it's like a roller coaster. Like you see the roller coaster and you're like, I'm not getting on that.
Yeah.
Not getting on it. And then you get on it and you're like, whoa, let's do that again.
Right, right. I feel like speaking is I have often said it's the fast path to cash and it's the fast path to that's a tongue twister. The fast path to cash and a fast path to transformation because you just face plant wherever your edge is. There's something about speaking that for most people, you get to meet that edge. You get to meet your edge and you get to decide to go past it and be bigger and take up more space and claim your brilliance, claim your authority. Like I said, everybody's on a different path and everybody meets a different edge. But when you meet that edge, like bam, that's when transformation happens. That's when growth happens. That's when you get to like dig deep into the well and bring more of yourself. Well, like the part that's been, on the back burner, the parts of yourself that have been kind of lurking below the surface. There's something about speaking that just like boom brings that forward, and then it's yours. So yeah. I think it's amazing transformation for yourself, the speaker, and for the audience.
And I think that the important thing with speaking, and this is one of the things that we talked about, was, the people that go on that speaking journey, their message needs to be heard. There's a reason that it happens, right? Because there are a lot of people that don't speak, but the people that speak, and not everybody I know is like a prolific speaker or whatever, but I would say that for the most part, when people speak, there is somebody who needs to hear that message. Like this podcast, right? Right now, somebody's listening to us going, oh shit, maybe I need to be a speaker, right? There's always somebody who needs to receive that message. But like I'm looking at your bio and I want to know, okay, why dancing around at the White House inside a rabbit suit? Like, were you like the Easter Bunny at the White House, or like what, what?
I wasn't. I was the Big Green Rabbit, which was a PBS TV show for kids filmed here in Denver. And I was in the rabbit suit and we would go to events like mostly just local events, and I'd hug kids. I'd dance around in the rabbit suit and hug kids. This was in my starving artist days. And then we got invited to go to the White House to the Easter egg roll. So like 3 years in a row, when Obama was president, I went to the White House and got to dance around in a rabbit suit and hug children and wave at the president.
That's amazing. You didn't get to hug Michelle and
but I got really close to her.
Okay.
Really close to her.
Right on.
I was in a rabbit suit, so
Well, yeah, she's probably like, okay, Secret Service, the rabbit's trying to hug the first lady, So, and then cutting off fish heads in Alaska.
Yeah, that was just one of my adventures. I took a boat to Alaska from Seattle, and I was a fish hippie. Fish hippie, and I got a job in the cannery and made it to the top of the slime line. It was like high, to cut heads was an honor.
Oh wow!
Because the fish come down the slime line, they cut the head off and then send it down, and then the bottom of the line they're like pulling the guts out. But I got to cut heads, and that was true advancement, true career advancement when I got to the top of the slime line.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know I can't even like, when I get shrimp, I bring it, like if I get fresh shrimp, I bring it to, my friend and client owns a specialty shop. So I'll bring them. I'm like, I can't do the heads I can't cut things off like that. So I give you a lot of credit for that. I give you a lot of credit for a lot of stuff, but okay. And then the bike messenger in New York City. So I've done that. So that's why,
it was a lot. I was just in New York City just last week telling a friend about my days as a bike messenger. And I was the only woman. And these guys were just like grungy New York City guys, and they would get around on the bike, and I'd show up and I was kind of fresh and dewy. And I was like, hi, I'm a bike messenger. And I got really special
in the tube and stuff like that, and whatever it is that you're messaging.
It was in the 80s, it was it was even before faxing.
Wow.
Like we thought, I remember when faxes came along, but it was before faxing, and we would, like in payphones, like I'd have to, I'd make the delivery and then I'd drop a quarter in the payphone, and my guy would pick up the phone and he'd say, "Hold, please, Johanna." And he'd have this big load, "Hold, please, Johanna." I'd say W42. That was my number, W42. And he'd say, "Hold, please, Johanna." Then he'd send me over to my dispatcher and he'd send me to the next job. And he called me darling. He was like, "Thank you, darling." And I got a lot of special, when I would show up at the place to make the delivery, they'd let me then I had to call in. I'd have to call into the station and get my next job so I could use the phone there. And that was like,
Right.
and I wouldn't have to go out for the payphone. So
When in the 80s, because that's when I did it. So when in the 80s?
Oh, when in the 80s?
What if you did it at the same time?
It was like, it would have been like 86, 87.
Okay, I might have been like 84, 85. So we're the same. We're probably the same age. Huh. Okay. Interesting. But yeah, I did it for a year and a half. Well, I was homeless from 19 to 20.
Wow.
Yeah. And then from 20 to 21, I was at this shelter run by nuns on Long Island, which is like a whole nother story. Then I came back into the city and my band was playing. So we would play and I was doing the messenger thing. And then I started working in delis and then I got into catering. And then it was like this, this whole thing. Yeah. But I remember I think it was like a year and a half. And I rode my bike everywhere. I mean, I rode my bike from Manhattan to like Long Island.
Me too. Well, I didn't go. I lived in Brooklyn and rode my bike into Manhattan across the Brooklyn all the time.
Right on. Yeah, I would ride all the way to like Long Island. Like I would just, it was nuts. But that's so awesome. Another thing we have in common, music and that. So what were you doing, before that, like before you became an entrepreneur? Like, were you always an entrepreneur or?
I was always an entrepreneur. I realized because I was teaching, as I said, I was a theater artist and I was teaching a solo performance class and I was teaching storytelling, but I would just like hang flyers around town and get people to come to my workshop. And then I painted houses. I did carpentry, I always had jobs, and then I would do theater projects. So on some level, I was an entrepreneur, but it was when I started my coaching business that it was like, oh, I'm a business owner.
That's what this is.
Oh, this is what I'm doing. And this, and then I started, when I started my coaching business, I was like, the coach I was working with said, now you need to get some practice clients. And I was like, how do I do that? And he said, well, you tell people. And I was like, what, I have to tell people? I have to tell people I'm doing this? Yeah, you got to tell people. And I was like, no, I don't want to tell anybody.
Oh my God.
So, if anybody had told me, I know most of your people are coming from corporate, like they leave corporate to become an entrepreneur.
I mean, some, not all. Like some of them lately, they've just been entrepreneurs their whole life.
Yeah. I mean, I was a starving hippie artist, and in some ways I feel like, well, so whatever. So I came from that direction into entrepreneurship. And it was like, oh, if anybody had told me what it was going to be and what I was going to have to do, I would have said, no way can I do that. That I'm not cut out for that, and as it turns out, because I went in so blindly, through the back door, I've managed to build a business that I love, and it's great. And I get to do amazing things with people, and I get to witness people do things they didn't know they could do. And, and I feel like my background as a theater artist really serves, like I bring in a whole nother perspective.
Oh, of course. Well, yeah, you're bringing this whole other perspective, right? That other people wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because you're adding, I'll just say it, you're adding the drama to it, right? I mean,
well, I would say more, I'm adding the humanity. I'm adding the humanity because for me, like I never did straight up plays. My theater was always solo performance and work that I created, and kind of centered in storytelling. And I feel what I bring is really just humanity and authenticity. And that's the best performers, the best actors are the ones who just are who show up and bring it, just the realness and the authenticity. And I feel like that's what I do for people is help them connect to their humanity.
That's amazing.
And when you can do that, like those are the speakers I want to hear. Those are the speakers I want to follow because it's like you show me how to be human, and then I get to go be human in a bigger way. And so I feel like that's what I do for people, and it's what I bring as we.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I'm drinking out of my Yeti and it's leaking all as I'm drinking it, so I had to take the cover off. But I think that's really important because when you see somebody speak, right, you can tell if they're being authentic or if they're not. I mean, it's like a no-brainer, and I know that I've seen a lot of people probably in the past couple of years really speak, and I've walked out of a couple of talks that was like, you're just blowing smoke. This isn't. But then I've been in other speeches or, talks where it's just like you said, leaning in and you want more. You're like, oh my God, don't stop. Don't stop. And that's a talent. I mean, that's, getting somebody, engaged like that, I think is pretty awesome. And when people are real, and they're really being themselves and coming from their heart, that's huge. That's like a big deal because that's how you're connecting. Right?
It's huge, exactly. And I think so many people think I want to deliver value. I need to deliver value. I need to deliver value. So I'm going to tell them all my expertise. I'm going to tell them all my proprietary material, and I'm going to give away content. I need to give content because I want to deliver value. And then it's just like, there's no place to put it. There's no connection. It's just overload. I was at this conference recently and I was amazed by the speakers who just like the slides were covered in data and bullet points. And just the talk was a fire hose of content. And I was like, really, guys? Really? And it was just like, and then they say, I'm going to share the slides with you. So you don't have to, and then it's like, maybe half a person, maybe one person from that room is going to actually look at the slides afterwards, Right. But it's like, I left being like, what did you just talk about? Because there was so much stuff.
That was a mistake I made the first time when I was talking to the Institute. Yep.
So many people. And when you can really get to the heart of, one thing, I always tell my people one thing, what's the one thing you want people to remember? What's the one thing? And then everything points to that one thing. And the stories that you get to tell, like that is where the audience can connect with you. And then there's a framework, there's a ground for them to get the value. If you're just throwing stuff at them, if you're just throwing content at them, they're not going to get it. They're not going to remember anything.
Yeah.
It's going to be overload and they're going to say next, they're going to maybe take some notes, but turn over the page and never look at it again, but it's like when you can find the stories to tell that connect to the human person sitting in the audience, then they're like, oh, I want to follow you. I want to do, I'm here for more.
Yeah. When I was talking about accessibility, was it during I don't know if it was the first one that I did or the VC Europe X, I kind of tied it together with a story that when we were, I think it was VC Europe X, when we were in Disney, because I'm a big proponent of accessibility. I think that websites should be accessible. I think businesses should, everything should be accessible because there are a lot of people out there that are disabled. And the fact that disabilities aren't included in DEIAB blows my mind, but that's like another story, right? But when my wife and I went to Disney for our 20th, we probably clocked 25,000 steps a day. And we did the 4-day park hopper and we didn't take a break in between. So we did 4 straight days. So by the 4th day, at 18,000 steps, I was done. I was like, I can't walk anymore. So I rented an electric scooter. So I rent the scooter, and it blew my mind how people aren't even looking at you, right? And they're on their phones, and I'm guilty of that. Not anymore. Now I'm always, aware of my surroundings to see if there's anybody. I'm honking the horn and it's going and who the hell is going to hear that, in Disney? But so I'm telling them this story about accessibility and how important it is. And it's not just, on web and online and all this other stuff, but like in life, And so one guy was like, oh my God, that like ties everything in so well. And I did it on purpose, but I didn't do it on purpose. Like I didn't know if me telling that story was going to take up time or if it was going to help them connect. And it helped them connect because I explained why accessibility. People were so rude. They were just walking in front of you. They're not stopping. They're not looking what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. And it was like one thing after another. And I was like, oh my God. And I realized the lack of respect that people in wheelchairs get. And so it kind of really drove home even more for me, the importance of accessibility. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's great. And it's great to have a story a story is the best way to convey that message.
yeah.
And I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my heart.
It's just something that, but it was something, it was an experience. So, what, there's entrepreneurs listening to this, people thinking about becoming entrepreneurs. What advice do you have for someone who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
I would say my advice is don't do it alone. Get the right help because it can be very isolating, so don't do it alone and stay in the joy. Like it's really easy. I think it's really easy to go down a path of hustle and urgency and doing all the things you think you're supposed to do and forgetting why you're doing it, so it's like really, really staying. I think, I don't know, people say this, like one of the things about being an entrepreneur is you're the boss and you get to do it your way. And yet there's so much coming at you. There's comparison and there's everybody's trying to sell you something. And, as an entrepreneur, like everybody is going to sell you their way to make $1 million and the thing that you have to do, or the sky is going to fall down. And everybody has their pitch and their sales language and their marketing language really dialed into this entrepreneurial community. So to be really discerning, it's like, get help, yes, but be really discerning and trust yourself. Like trust yourself. You really get to do it your way. And that's where it took me a while to get there. And I feel like I've gotten to the place of joy where I'm really just like, oh no, if that doesn't bring me joy, I am not doing it.
Yes.
I am not doing it. And I've had to let go of a lot of stuff, or not. I've had to. I've had the courage and the gall to let go of a lot of stuff that I thought I had to do, but was making me hate my business.
Yeah.
When I really was able to do that and really stay with only what brought me joy, now it's like, oh, check it out. I really am in charge. Oh, and then just the flow is happening. And I'm having some great opportunities come my way and really amazing clients I get to work with. My program's full, and I feel like it's because I made that decision.
Right.
So, somehow being able to start there. And I think there's something really, about being able to negotiate all the resources that just get thrown in your face and all the people that are trying to sell you something to make your business better. There's so much out there.
Mm-hmm.
You got to take some risks and make some mistakes but I think ultimately, like, trusting trusting yourself, like asking for help, getting the help you need, but also trusting yourself.
Right. Because they're like everyone and their mother is trying to like sell you
Yeah.
something, right? Even now, where I'm at, I did a post on this on LinkedIn last week. It's like, stop selling me, stop connecting with me to sell me something, And then I had this one woman who I was like, she connected with me and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad we could connect," and was talking to me for a week. And after a week, then she sells me something. And I went, that's even more sleazy because as the week was going on, I kind of, it was like one of these, and then you feel like it's being reeled in, right? And by like the third day, I was like, this feels like it's leading somewhere that I don't want it to go. And then sure enough, it was. And I said to her, I said, I'm so disappointed because you made this seem like a true connection. And you're more sleazy than any of the other ones because at least they sell me right away.
Yeah.
So now you're getting blocked. And I blocked her because, I wanted to say other things, but I was nice because I'm like, it's not worth my energy. But it's just amazing to me,
Yeah.
but you're right. If for
I think,
me,
there are the sleazy people selling like that, and then there are just people doing their business.
right.
You get on their email list, and then your email is full of offers, and there's just like some of it. I feel like it's just be discerning.
Well, be discerning, but if you get on an email list that you didn't ask to be on, which has happened to me, I can't tell you,
Yeah.
man. So I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I sat here and I was like, I'm done. And I unsubscribed from every single thing that I didn't ask for.
Oh, yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and it was people that I knew. And I sent them a text saying, you know what? You're about to get an unsubscribe notice. I didn't want to be on the list and you kind of put me on there anyway, which sucked. But I was at least able to tell them, right? It's like, I'm not, we're still friends, but I don't want to be on your list. And so I just like, but like where you were like, if it doesn't bring you joy. And for me, it's like, if it's not a full bodied yes,
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. I'm not working with the person. I'm not doing the thing. I'm in the middle right now of making a decision on something that really isn't a full bodied yes anymore. And it sucks because there's good opportunity and there's good people, but I don't know. So I'm figuring that one out because it's not like a full bodied no either. So I'm going, all right, I'm gonna work with that one. But so what what you say that you were a fish hippie and you did all the things. Like where did you start out? Like what's your story?
Where did I start out? You mean my business or start out in life?
Excuse me, like, in life as like, what was your first step before you started doing your one person shows and all that? Like, how did all of that transpire?
My story is so all over the place. One story I like to tell is from second grade. I was a really quiet kid, and I went into the class every day and had to write 10 sentences out of the 10 vocabulary words. And I was not a great reader, so I really struggled. I lived in Chicago. It was a big classroom. And so I went and I told my dad and my mom that I was bored in school. And my dad went down to talk to the teacher and said, "Johanna's an artist. She loves to write and draw and paint. Can you bring more creativity into the curriculum?" So she came into the classroom the next day, marched up and down the aisles in her miniskirt, and she said, "There's someone in this classroom who believes she knows more about educating second graders than I do." And she stood in front of my desk and
Shut up.
crossed her arms, and she glared down at me and she said, "Johanna, would you like to teach the class today?" And because I was a good girl who did what I was told, I made my way to the front of the room. I felt like I was crossing a moat of fire-breathing dragons and poisonous snakes. And I slowly, slowly walked to the front of the room, and I stood there in utter terror. And I didn't say a word. And the kids started snickering. And I did everything I could to not cry. My chin was curling up, and I did everything I could to not cry. And I just wanted nothing more than to be invisible. And finally she said, "Is it okay if I teach today?" And I nodded and took my seat. And that was the day I decided it wasn't a good idea to share my thinking, to ask for help, to share an idea. And I
Oh my
stayed
God.
good and quiet and well behaved for many, many, many years after that. Many years. And I would sometimes go for days without speaking. I remember standing at the bus stop counting on my hand. Oh, that's 5 days where I didn't say a word. Like I didn't say a word. I just went through the world getting pretty good grades, not saying a word. Like
To your
my job.
parents, like nobody?
Well, at home, no, in school. At home, I was like the
Oh,
troublemaker.
okay. I thought
No,
you went like, okay.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
At home, I was the one starting all the fights and pissing everybody off. You know? But at school,
Okay.
I would go to school and not say a word. I
Wow.
would go to school and not say a word.
How
And
horrible. I mean, how horrible is that?
yeah, it was lonely. It was lonely.
Yeah.
But I was a writer. I was a writer. I had stacks and stacks of journals. And in my I mean, even in college, I made a self-portrait. My face was down here in the corner, big piece of paper. And there was this big, huge talk bubble that filled the page. And in the middle of the talk bubble, in tiny letters, it said, I have nothing to say. Like that was the story that I told, that I believed to be true about myself. I have nothing to say. And it was in my mid-20s. I was a writer. I had, like I said, I was a poet. I had stacks of journals, and I would go to poetry readings and just listen. But then I lived in Kent, Ohio. It was the 20th anniversary of the Kent State shootings, and they did a 48-hour poetry celebration. So poets came from all over the world and sent poems. Who couldn't come sent poems for local poets to read. So I thought, oh, I can do that. I can read somebody else's poem. And I read a poem, or I raised my hand to read a poem. But when I got to the mic, they said, I said, I don't have my poem yet. You didn't give me my poem. And they said, oh, we thought you were reading one of your own poems. And I was like, no, 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 you don't understand. No, 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 I don't read my poems. No, thank you, but no, I don't do that. You know,
Wow.
well, we can skip you. And, you know, I had my little journal of poems, or, you know, so I went through my folder and pulled out a poem and I read it. And I heard my voice. I heard my voice fill the room.
Wow.
And I heard the connection happen. I could feel it. It was palpable. I could hear my voice. I could feel my voice landing on the hearts of the people in the audience. And I was like, oh, there I am. Oh, wow. You know, I felt it. I felt the aliveness just in sharing my story. And my story at that point, my writing at that point was all about my story of silence, of not speaking.
Wow.
So people came up to me afterwards and said, thank you for telling your story. That's my story too. And I was like, are you kidding me? I had been so isolated in my little bubble of silence that I had no idea. And other people said, thank you for telling your story. That's my story too. And that totally opened the door. And I started working with adolescent girls and women in jail and, you know, community senior adults, helping them tell stories and write poems and make performances. And it was totally just like, oh, I got to see the power of telling a story. You know, thank you for telling your story. That's my story too. Like, that's why we tell stories.
Right.
Know?
Well, that's what I was saying, right? Somebody's going to listen to this and be like, oh.
Yeah, yeah. And the door opens and we learn about, like, there's no guidebook for being human, I say. There's no guidebook for being human, but the stories we tell are the guidebook. The stories we tell are the guidebook, and that's how we learn about how to be human. And you know, even in business, like that's what we're doing is like, what have you figured out? Tell me your story, you know, and that's how the doors open. So, you know, that was that's sort of the early story of how I got to my voice as an artist. And then it was many years later that I started working with CEOs and bank executives and entrepreneurs and community leaders, and seeing just like across the board, people have parts of their voice they have put on the back burner, you know, because there's no soft landing pad. And it's like, I have to show up and be a professional and be a grown up. And I just leave my humanity in the hallway, you know, and I feel like that's what your people want.
Yeah.
They want you.
One of my, she's a friend now, but you know, she's also a client, was a former COO of Mercy Housing. And she has these amazing stories from the, you know, the not-for-profit scene. And we do 2-hour recordings every month, video, and then we do some audio. And so she had the former CEO of Mercy Housing, who was her boss, on. And one of the things that we were talking about was how, leaders are afraid to be vulnerable because they're afraid that if they're vulnerable, then they're going to look weak. And what Jane said, and what is her last name? Anyway, Jane, who is she's an amazing human. She said, the first thing I did was show my vulnerability, show that we're in this not-for-profit thing. And, and it was for housing, right? It was for, affordable housing, basically. And you have to go to banks to get loans, to get housing and like all of this stuff. And she goes, they had to see that I was in it with them. And the only way that they could see that I was in it with them was by me telling them, hey, I'm as scared as you are. And so I think that, when more leaders, and that's a leader, because there's bosses, and the bosses don't want to be vulnerable. They just want to be tough and they want to tell you what to do and get things done their way, and that's it. But when you have an actual leader who really wants to lead from the heart and come from that spot, that's when the magic happens, because that's when the stories happen.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so powerful. It's just letting yourself be vulnerable. And so I love what you do.
Say that again.
I love what you do. I think that, to be able to break that down, really.
The client that I talked about at the beginning of our talk, who just gave a talk yesterday, he's in e-commerce. He has an e-commerce business, and he was speaking at an e-commerce conference. And initially he came in thinking he had to they want to know about X, Y, Z, and they want to know this, this, and this, and they're trying to scale their businesses, and I have to show them how. And he told a story. He told a story of the pivot point in his life as a business owner, and where, a very personal story about the place where he was, a very personal story about where he made the shift into scalability, and then he gave some really key actionable tips, but he started with the story, the very human story of his own. It was very vulnerable. It was very vulnerable for him to share the before he was able to make that pivot. And he said people came up and thanked him. Thank you for your story. Really resonated, and again, the story is sort of what becomes the container for any of the content you want to share. Because he was really clear he wanted to give away, or to have actionable takeaways. It's really important that they have, you don't want to just tell the story. You want them to have actionable takeaways so they can go do the thing that's going to make their business scale, give them scalability. But to start with the story, it's like you just clear away all the noise, and then we're just two humans in a room.
Wow. And
then so much more is possible. So much more becomes possible.
Yeah.
And it happens to me all the time. I get into my own head about people don't want to hear the story. They want the nuts and bolts, and then I get blown away. I get blown away sometimes when I think I was speaking to this group. There were software engineers and all men, mostly men. And I was like, oh, they don't want to hear my fluff. My stuff is too woo-woo for them. I was doing this 2-day training and on storytelling, and the first day I was kind of just in the da-da-da-da-da-da, and they kind of weren't getting it. It wasn't really landing. And then the next day I went in and I told a story. I just was like, okay, here's this. And they were like, oh, and it just cracked open so much.
Wow.
So it's like I get in my own head too about how, I have some assessment, some projection, or some profiling about a certain kind of person who isn't going to want to care about, they just want you know what I mean?
Yeah. And when you are authentic and you do the authentic thing. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. It's so funny because, Koken calls it imposter syndrome, right? We get this minute where we're like, nobody wants to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, am I even when I was doing the VC Europe X thing, I was like, okay, like, is anybody, getting anything from this? And then the stuff started coming in. I was like, yes, I don't suck. This is good. This is a good thing, right? Because you kind of get in your head like before it. So I think it was Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays ago, 2 nights before it, I was not sleeping. I was in my head going, okay, I know what I'm going to say. Annie's going to pare it down on Monday. Annie and I are going to go over it Monday night. The thing is Tuesday. We're okay. We're good. And next thing I know, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this thing exhausted. Right. So then Monday came and I met with Annie. We went over it and I was like, okay, so the thing is at 11 a.m. tomorrow. I'm good. I'm going to sleep in a little because I haven't really slept the past, couple of, so I'm like laying awake going, how many people are going to be there? Who's going to be receiving this? I didn't even like, are they even going to want to hear it? And I was so in my head. And my wife, it was hilarious. She woke up at like 3 o'clock and she was like, oh my God, stop thinking. And I looked at her and I said, what do you even mean? She goes, I think your thinking woke me up. Stop. She's like, just go to bed. And I was like, oh my God. So I must have been like projecting so much like crazy ass energy that it woke her up. And she had, has to get up at 5:30 to go to work, 6 o'clock. So yeah, it wasn't helpful, but it was pretty funny. But yeah, we just get in our own head sometime. So so we're almost at an hour. It's like crazy. Because there's like so many more things I want to like talk to you about. So what makes you different from other coaches who teach speaking or who coach speaking?
I think, I think one is where I come from in terms of humanity. Like I keep it real. I don't mess around. I just keep it real. And the other big thing is the body. Is like our bodies carry all of our stories and all of our wisdom and all that we know is in our bodies. And a lot of people who get on stage as a speaker, it's like, oh, I have to tuck in and be professional. And we shut down our humanity and our bodies, our physicality in the name of professionalism. But there's so much power there. There's so much power there in our bodies. And so when I work with people, like the work comes through and of and from our bodies, because when we're, and then when you're on stage, it's like you're more in the room. Wow. You're more in the room because you're bringing your whole self, your heart and your body and your voice and your breath is all connected.
Wow.
All connected. And then fear, self-doubt, nerves has nothing on you, because when all that is in alignment, then the nerves are just energy, it's just vibration, it's just sensation, and you can channel it to be your battery pack. Wow. So I do pretty deep work in getting people connected to their bodies and their breath and their voice and their heart and their story that lives there. Like that's where our stories live. So when you tell your story from that place, it just it's fuller. It takes up more space. It connects. There's place there for people to connect.
Wow, that just sounds so powerful. How do people get hold of you? Where can they find you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Definitely connect on LinkedIn. Tell me you met me here. And I like to, I love a message with a LinkedIn connection. So I love just a hello from a LinkedIn connection. But you can also check out my website. And I've got some, free stuff you can download over there. And for better stories, I think what's alive right now is 10 tips to make your stories, tell stories that have greater impact and connect with your clients. So those are the two best places, LinkedIn and my website.
Awesome. And then I can't believe we're here already, but the last question that I ask all my guests is, drum roll, please. What lights your fire?
My fire. You gave me this question. You gave me this question ahead of time, and I didn't prepare. But I would say, being in my body, like dancing, hiking, anytime I can be outside in my body, fully expressing myself and breathing and playing, it just lights me up, lights my fire. And I get to do that with my clients. Like when I'm doing that and opening the door for my clients to get into that space, it's just thrilling. It's
Wow.
thrilling and exciting. And then from that place to get to watch them take leaps they didn't know they can make, it's just like that totally lights my fire. Oh my God, but so many things light my fire. I want to tell you a list of other things too.
I know. It's like, okay, give me one more.
Well, songwriting, performing songs, singing and playing the piano. I've been having so much fun working on the piano and working on songwriting. And I am not a singer. That's how you and I are different. I do sing. I mean, I'm a singer because I sing, but I didn't grow up singing, and my singing voice it's an edge for me. It's a place out of my comfort zone for me to sing.
But you did it. I saw you do it.
I did it and I do it. I did it and I do it.
Yep.
And it's been a huge, it's been a huge, exciting venture for me to take that on and decide that I am a singer and a songwriter.
Awesome.
It's been really, really fun.
That is so cool. Yeah. And we definitely have that piece in common, because that's my zone. Like when I'm done with this, I'm going to feed them, and then I have band practice. So, and it's just such a good outlet. And we're doing this like Christmas show on, we have a place here called the Wabash Center. So this is probably going to air in like April, I think. So Christmas is going to be way, long past, but, we have this Christmas show that we're doing, and it's like, what songs are we going to do? Christmas songs. So, and it's like, I love Christmas music. Like my wife will be driving to Pittsburgh to see our family over the holidays. And I'm like, hey, I can finally put Christmas music on. She's like, no Christmas music. And I have to wait for her to like take a nap. So when she's not home, I have Spotify on. I'm like singing every Christmas carol I could possibly sing, from like religious ones to, whatever, because I love it all. But well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, because I know you're busy.
So fun to talk to you.
To share, you with my audience. Hang on one second. I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to come right back.
Okay.
So everybody, thank you so much again for hanging out for an hour plus. I hope that you think that Johanna is as awesome as I am, and, go to her website, I think johannawalker.com, and connect with her on LinkedIn. Tell her that you saw her here so that she actually accepts your connection. And for everybody, who has been downloading, thank you so much. Subscribe, share, like. If you've heard anything in this episode that speaks to you, share it. Get the word out. When you subscribe, you get a notification of a new episode every week. And who doesn't want a new episode of the Cookbook every week? I mean, come on. So, but seriously, I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.